We've taken information from over 500 business leaders, and we're about to report that back in the next couple of weeks. Probably by the time you'll be hearing this, the report will be in the open market. That report shows that 76% of recruiters do not have a clearly defined business development strategy. 76%, which means that just 24% of people have real clarity over exactly what they're being asked to do and how. It's no wonder then that motivation levels are really low. We see recruiters from the data, 84% of recruiters have really strong positive beliefs about recruitment. 85% say they have positive beliefs about sales. But that lack of strategy is leaving them without the confidence to feel like they can really crack on and get the results that they believe they deserve. Real quick before we begin. Working with over 1,000 recruiters, I've seen the same thing time and time again. The challenge of always being on a roller coaster of results and just wanting a consistent way to win new, exclusive and retained business. To help figure out how you can get there, I've created a business development assessment, a way to test your strategy. It's a simple process with a few questions designed to give you actionable steps that you need to win consistent business for your agency, whether you're a leader or a top biller. Hundreds of recruiters have already used this assessment to jumpstart their growth, including million-dollar billers. And as a valued listener to the show, I've included a link so you can access it for free right now in the show notes. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please go check it out. And now let's get on with the show. Recruitment business leader with a team who perhaps aren't as motivated or doing as much business development as you'd like, or you're hoping to improve the quality of your business development this year, or you're a consultant who's in the same boat. You'd like to feel more confident, more consistent, do more activity and generate better results. This episode is absolutely for you. Welcome back to another episode of Recruiting Better with me, Ben Browning. This show is specifically designed to help recruitment business leaders and consultants increase their billings and grow their business by focusing on how you can become better at business development. Now, our focus today is all about one key area of making sure that happens. It's around performance and motivation in your sales team. Now, most recruiters don't recognize the fact that they don't embrace the fact that they are salespeople. This is a big challenge when we think about growing recruitment organizations. Lots of recruiters stepping into the environment would much rather spend their time talking to candidates, managing processes, juggling projects and making sure that they make placements. All of that really important consultative risk management stuff. But when it comes to actually generating business and going out and speaking to target clients, they are terrified of those conversations and really nervous about asking for the big commitment that they seek. The real challenge is that as a business leader or business owner, you'll recognize that your ability to grow business and generate revenue has been one of the biggest keys to your success. And your level of comfort with generating new business and winning new clients increases over time as you become more and more experienced and more skilled and frankly carry more responsibility. Your comfort level with sales and meeting new clients naturally increases. So what we have in your organizations or in most recruitment organizations is this conflict between the rookie who's reluctant to get into sales and reluctant to do business development on their own, or frankly, really hungry but a little bit naive around it. And on the other hand, we've got business leaders who are rainmakers, experienced salespeople who have this natural kind of level of confidence with sales, but perhaps who haven't spent the time or really thought about how to break down those stories, break down their sales methodology and share it with the junior consultants around them. And what we're going to particularly focus on today is how you can help motivate everybody in your team, from the most experienced consultants right down to your total rookies, in doing more business development, getting confident with it, and getting the kind of results that you expect them to see. So the real question we're looking to answer today is, how do you motivate a team of consultants or individual consultants to step up, to level up, to embrace sales, and potentially even aim to become the best salespeople their clients have ever met? That's certainly the goal a lot of the recruitment business leaders I speak to really seek out. They recognize that 2024 was a tough year and they need to push on. They need to level up. They need to develop a level of excellence that perhaps they haven't seen in their organization until this point, particularly when it comes to winning new business. Now, one of the things that really acts as a demotivator, one of the challenges that they really run into is the fact that the classic playbook, the approach that we take to market, the metrics that we put in place, the way we think about motivating individual recruiters to do business development no longer fits with the current culture and kind of the way that we're seeing results get generated by the best performers in the industry. What we need to look at, what we're constantly finding is that the playbook and the approach and the strategy that these businesses are taking is increasingly feeling outdated. The kinds of things that we're seeing are consultants feeling pressured and therefore not wanting to do high call volumes, or alternatively, length of calls is being measured, and that's not necessarily encouraging all of the right behaviors. KPIs are often called out as being a real kind of polarizing effect on motivating consultants. And when we do have KPIs or when we do have key indicators and metrics, that often comes down to delivery metrics like those CV to job ratios or interview coverage. All of that sort of data and all of that kind of approach leads to a disjointedness between the conversations that individual managers have with their team, the outcomes that they're trying to get. Let me explain this a little bit further. If you track metrics that your consultants feel don't generate the right kind of outcomes or the results that they believe they're capable of, then it's very unlikely that they are going to want to or feel motivated to undertake those activities. Now, we've got to therefore make sure that the metrics that we're tracking and the things that we're thinking about are actually balanced or are actually aligned with the goals that you're trying to achieve. At the same time, more and more recruiters tell me that the big challenge, the reason they want to change their relationship with BD and the reason they want to do more BD is because they want to be seen as an expert by their clients. They want to raise their footing. They want to win more retainers or more exclusive business or more statement of work type stuff, but they feel frustrated because their clients don't see them as being that high value, that highly trusted advisor level consultant, and they're not really breaking through the noise. Ultimately, they're getting seen as transactional, and that is leading them to feel frustrated at the lack of value they get from their clients, but their sales approaches are continuing to position themselves as transactional. And once again, we have this mismatch. It's very difficult to motivate somebody, not only if the metrics that you're tracking are ones that they feel disjointed against the goals that you're setting, but also if their messaging is disjointed against the goals you're setting. For example, it is very difficult for a consultant to spec out a candidate and pivot that into a retained search. The two things just come from different places. The spec comes from a transactional place, and the retainer or the retained solution conversation comes from a solutions oriented place. It's very difficult to do both things well. And that naturally creates this intuitive breakdown in motivation between consultants' desire to do business development. Effectively, what we're saying here is that the plan that you have for generating revenue isn't consistent with what consultants believe will work. It's possible that they are incorrect, and that you as a leader or you as an experienced consultant know that the activity that you're responsible for, the activity that you're asking for, will generate the results. But we've seen a really big shift in sales channels, in sales methodology over the last few years. I always caveat this. It's always really important to say that sales hasn't fundamentally changed. Buyer behavior hasn't really changed. In fact, biopsychology hasn't changed in millennia, but what we are seeing is the way people use the phone, email, DMs has changed a heck of a lot in the last 5 years. And even more so in recent times as AI and technology has started to reduce our tolerance for spam and increase the level of expectation we have around the quality of outreach we receive. I think consultants feel that too, don't they? Consultants feel like the level of quality in their messaging should be increasing. So while we're championing volume and saying, yeah, you absolutely need to be getting in front of more people, they're also concerned about the quality of the messaging that they're putting out there because of this reduced tolerance for spam and this expectation that quality is going to be delivered. So as we think about those challenges, there's a number of things here. We're thinking about both the metrics, the message, and the methods that you're using getting in front of people are leaving consultants feeling like maybe there's a better way of doing business. And as I say, whether they are right or wrong, there is some data that suggests that we could, as an industry, be doing better. I've had the privilege of running a report over the last couple of months. We've taken information from over 500 business leaders, and we're about to report that back in the next couple of weeks. Probably by the time you'll be hearing this, the report will be in the open market. That report shows that 76% of recruiters do not have a clearly defined business development strategy. 76%, which means that just 24% of people have real clarity over exactly what they're being asked to do and how. It's no wonder then that motivation levels are really low. We see recruiters from the data, 84% of recruiters have really strong positive beliefs about recruitment. 85% say they have positive beliefs about sales. But that lack of strategy is leaving them without the confidence to feel like they can really crack on and get the results that they believe they deserve. And so when we think about this question of motivating salespeople, when we think about this question of how do you actually get out there and start building a highly effective, profitable, revenue-generating business, how do you grow a high-performing and elite recruitment business based around people who are highly motivated to generate more revenue? The first building block is having a clear process with clear metrics, a clear message, and a clear method that everybody believes in will get results. So how on earth do you go about doing that? The first step is to know how you sell today. What is it about your sales process that is working? And by working, I don't simply mean pulling vacancies, but winning full commitment from the ideal clients you want to do business with. That's a really key definition. Because if I told you that business development simply meant pulling jobs or doing, what works is simply picking up vacancies, there are 1,000 different ways you could go about that. You might even end up relying on inbound. Don't do that. I'm joking. But it's true that an inbound strategy would be an effective way of picking up jobs. Does it enable you to generate a high level of commitment from your ideal target clients? I'm not certain. I've not seen any data that leads me to believe it absolutely does. I'm sure you're out there. And if you are somebody who's listening to this thinking my inbound strategy does that, then congratulations. But there are other ways of doing this too. You might look at something around lead gen. So you might say, look, everything we do, the best path for our consultants in order to achieve this consistency and confidence with generating new business all flows from lead generation. We've got lead magnets, we've got assets out in the market that generate this initial interest. And we know that off the back of that, by tracking those through and having really good conversion conversations and a really tight funnel, we can get people from an initial level of interest all the way through to highly converted clients. And if that is true for your business right now, congratulations, because that is exceptionally difficult to do. We've got that pure inbound content strategy kind of approach. We've got that lead gen type approach. We've also got, of course, an outbound engine. And this is what most people think about when they think about generating new business. This is what most people think about when they think about creating a high performing, elite level recruitment business where everybody in their team is confident and consistent with generating new revenue. Typically, that comes down to an outbound sales methodology. But unless you know that that works for you, you're not going to know what to change. And unless you know what's working and what isn't, then your consultants are never going to have that clarity and confidence over the method, and they're never going to have the motivation to go out and action the plan. So first thing we want to look at is, where is the data across your business around what is working from the channels you're using and the methodology that you're using. The next thing we want to think about as part of that plan is, who exactly do you want to win business from? What does an ideal client look like? I have 2 metrics that I share with everybody for this. Annual client value, i.e. how much revenue can you generate from that client this year, and client retention and growth. So retention and growth are sort of on a scale from each other, right? If we retain, then we grow. But what is that client growth metric? So first of all, when I'm thinking about new business, I'm specifically thinking about annual client value. And then secondly, when I'm thinking about client value growth, that's more of my kind of account expansion methodology. I'm thinking about my upselling and cross-selling in that space. And again, honestly, if you want consultants who are confident in going out and having sales conversations, the best place to build that confidence is with a system to turn your existing clients into high value existing clients, not just retain, but expand on those relationships. The system for doing that feels a lot safer and a lot warmer to consultants than the system for going out and doing a new business. There's a real opportunity here for businesses to look at their data and say, where are our best clients coming from? Where are our highest or fastest growing clients coming from? Where is our greatest volume of business coming from? And are those channels working to our best advantage? Which of those are we most competent and comfortable with? And which of those do we need to analyze and do some more work around? If you want to get your consultants really confident with the new business piece, then there's an important next step, which is to break down all of the steps in that process. And typically, a sales strategy is going to include maybe 4 or 5 steps, depending on your market. We're absolutely going to need to start with prospecting. We need to be going out and having conversations with people. Prospecting conversations aren't really sales conversations. They're more research conversations. We build out a hypothesis about the challenges and the opportunities in our market. We go out and share it with a list of target clients. And the people who say they do face those challenges and are working towards those opportunities are ones who we then progress to the next stage. The next stage in our conversation is discovery. And this is where we're going to really work out how big those problems are, whether they're worth solving, what value we attach to them, whether they're urgent enough to really take action on. Once we've done that, we'll typically need to involve a couple of other stakeholders in the process. Recruiters love having just one stakeholder and flying under the radar as much as possible. But typically, if we're going to close out maximum commitment with a high value client, we need to think about multi-threading. And then we move on to the next and final step, which is usually deal negotiation and really kind of mapping out exactly how best we can agree terms and the level of commitment to each other. And sometimes when there's multiple stakeholders in that conversation, we might need to do some sidebar discovery conversations that enable us to bring that person right into the decision-making process and move forward positively. But typically, there's always going to be prospecting, discovery, multi-threading, and negotiation. So once you've looked at each of those steps in the process, you'll have a sense of what's working well for you. And when you know that, you can start really rewarding your consultants with greater clarity over the plan, getting consistency by talking to people internally, by listening to their calls, by watching their video meetings back, by creating a kind of a template or a framework that everybody finds easy to follow because it's consistent across the organization. Now, you're going to have some people who are brilliant at writing sales emails or doing cold calls. You're going to have some people who are much better at running meetings. You're going to have some people who are fantastic at negotiation. Highlight those strengths, pull them out, show them what good looks like. This isn't about training. It's about organizational intelligence. It's about thinking about the dots that connect you to revenue and working back through them to see what you're doing well and what needs to be improved. Now, there is a training element to that, but right now this is about tracking what's happening in the organization already, tracking the data, mapping it out, and laying it really clearly out for your consultants. Once you've done that, you can start looking at data points. And this isn't about classic KPIs like CV to interview or the volume of jobs pulled. This is about core data from within your sales process. Let me give you an example. It's an incredible thing to be able to do to sit down with a consultant at the end of the week and look back through their call notes. Now, I refer to these as call dispositions, and a disposition is how did this call go? Usually it's from a drop-down menu. And it might include things like, well, they hung up in the first 15 seconds. Well, they hung up after the first 45 seconds as I was doing my pitch. Or they hung up after the first 2 minutes once the conversation got going. Or they didn't actually hang up, but we got to the end of the conversation and they told me that they weren't interested after about 5 minutes. Or on the flip side, they said, yeah, we are interested in that. The thing that they were most interested in was this particular element. Now, at the end of the week, if you've got those dispositions in place, you can look back with a consultant and you can talk them through how their calls went. Not individual calls. I'm much less worried about how an individual call goes, but I want to look at the pattern of data and the pattern of information. If someone's getting hung up on in the first 15 seconds or 45 seconds of their call, what kind of data have they got? Are they calling the right people? Have these people been hammered with lots of outreach? Is there something they're saying in that first 15 to 45 seconds that is putting their target client off? Is there something in their script that isn't working? Look around. If they are booking meetings and they are consistently seeing success on their outreach calls or even via emails, the same thing applies here. They're consistently seeing positive replies. What is it that's triggering those replies? What are people responding positively to? Now, I don't want to capture those in terms of notes in the CRM, in terms of free-form text, because that's murky and it's very difficult to analyze, very difficult for me to pull a report on. But if I could tell you that last week, one of your consultants did 25 calls, and of those calls, 3 people hung up within the first 45 seconds, 7 people went on to have 3 to 5 minute conversations which ended in no interest. But 10 people had conversations with them, and of those 10, 50% were specifically interested in addressing a problem around funding runway or maximizing the investment they get at their next funding milestone. How would that impact your thinking, and how would it impact your consultant's confidence? All of a sudden, your consultant can see in the data, not only that, yeah, they had some good calls, they had some bad calls, but they can see straight away that the vast majority of the calls they made were positive around this one topic. That means I can laser focus in on that topic. This, as I say, this is about data and metrics and measuring and using that to drive your performance forwards. But it's not about saying you didn't do enough calls this week or you weren't on the phone long enough this week. It's about saying how your conversation's going. As I said a few moments ago, it's about market research that you can then use. It's about market research that you can use to inform what you do next. And with that clarity over the process and the steps and the metrics, you can really start to build out your messaging. You can start elevating your consultants from a place of uncertainty and lack of consistency and a feeling of demotivation and frustration when it comes to business development to one where you can have clear and transparent conversations with them about the expectation you have over their business development. You can have clear and transparent conversations around what you're tracking, what you've seen in their activity, the way that they're trending, things, interventions that you could together can put into place that will help them improve. Now, if you think that is great from a motivational perspective for BD, what about the way that motivates them to develop and learn? I have this strong conjecture that training and recruitment is overrated, not because it isn't valuable and not because there's too much of it. In fact, quite the opposite. There probably isn't enough training in the recruitment industry. But the reason I think that training is overrated is that for most competent consultants, so I'm going to include everybody listening to this in that bracket, if you are currently capable of billing, winning a new client and making a placement, then the limit of that skill set, the capacity that you have, is massive. I genuinely believe that most 150k billers could be a 500,000 biller without masses of new skills or skill development. The skill development that they'll need will be experience, but actually the key things that are going to really drive that success are tracking the right things, running the right process, and constant tweaking and iterating and improving their messaging and their targeting. Genuinely, skills, if you can bill 150k, you can bill 500,000. Skills are not going to be the thing that's going to make the difference. Process, metrics, constant improvement. Those are the things that will help you. So when you can give a consultant clarity over what is the process, what are the metrics, how are we generating revenue, what conversations are we having, and why do they work? Why are they landing with our clients? Then you can quickly see consultants grabbing training, saying, I need help on this process. I need help on that bit of the process. That self-serve modulated training model that became so popular kind of in the 2010s is a great tool, great asset. When your consultant has clarity over what their BD process is supposed to consist of, what they're tracking, what works and why. And I think that goes a really long way to articulating this point around motivation. The lack of motivation that consultants have, based on our data, 85% of people claim to have positive feelings, positive beliefs, I should say, about sales and about recruitment that drive the way they do BD. And yet, because only 24% of people have a clear and consistent process, it's very difficult for them to invest that feeling, that motivation into getting results. The lack of clarity that they have stops them from reaching out and leveling up in the way that they might otherwise like to. It makes them anxious about doing business development in the first place. And it creates this gap in your results where you're constantly feeling like you're having to push your consultants to motivate them to do business development. That feeling as though your consultants should want to do it. Don't they want to make money? Don't they want to get better? That constant feeling that you're doing so much hard work to get people to do the necessary minimums becomes so much simpler when you start building your sales processes in the right way. Now, of course, most weeks in the podcast, you'll hear me talk about new business, outbound sales strategies. And that's where we kind of focus most of our attention in the recruitment world and the work that I do with my clients. But it's absolutely true that that same process of planning, mapping, measuring, and having that complete feedback loop for leveling up would be absolutely the same whether you're pursuing an outbound strategy, an inbound strategy, a lead gen strategy, a demand gen strategy, whichever channel or methodology you're looking to drive your revenue, and it may well be, frankly, also all of them. You've got to be looking at the plan, the metrics, the message, and then continually leveling that up. One final thought on this. If you are determined to turn your recruitment organization into one of true excellence, into a systematic and sustainable revenue generating business, then it's absolutely essential that you get your consultants motivated around business development. And the simplest and most direct way to do that, the most effective way to do that, is approaching business development, whatever channel you use, with a real clear strategy around the system, the methodology, the metrics, and the message, and leveling up time and time again. People procrastinate over business development there's been a lot of study on effectiveness and efficiency, and people tend to procrastinate on things for one of three reasons. Either they don't believe that the thing that the action they're about to take is going to deliver the result that they're targeting. Either that, or they don't believe that the result that they're trying to achieve is actually possible for them. Or thirdly, they believe that achieving the result that they're trying to reach for is actually such a threat to their personal identity that it's very difficult for them to really fully buy into. So they're either procrastinating because they don't know what they're doing, or that they don't think it'll work, or that they're worried that it will work and it will change who they are. Those are the three reasons people classically procrastinate. So why is it the recruiters are so reluctant to do business development? What's happening in your team? Is this a question of people feeling like if they go out and do everything they can, they could bill £500,000 and that would dramatically change their self-view, their self-worth. It would dramatically change their lives. It might be more money than their parents or anyone they've ever known has earned in their lives before. And therefore, wow, all of a sudden they're getting a bit of a nosebleed even thinking about billing that much money. Or is it because when they think about the steps that they have in front of them, the clear plan, they just do not believe that the clear plan they have laid out is going to deliver the results they're shooting for? Or could it be a third thing? Could it be actually when they come to business development, the plan that they have isn't clear enough and they're not certain on exactly how taking the actions laid out in front of them could possibly generate the goal that they're working towards? Often it's a combination of certainly two of those things, if not all three. And in this episode, we're really going to unpack exactly how you can challenge that mentality, how you can approach that to create greater motivation amongst your consultants to get them doing high quality business development and turn your organization into a sustainable and scalable elite performance environment.